Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 15th of January. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. With one eye on her vision of making Korea a creative economy, President Park Geun-hye begins hearing what steps the nation's economy-related ministries and agencies are going to take toward that goal in 2015. A Korean lawmaker will pass a note from President Park Geun-hye to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe today. A group of lawmakers from Korea and Japan agree to push for a summit between the leaders by the middle of the year. Plus, in a video posted online, Al-Qaeda in Yemen claims responsibility for the terror attack on the offices of Charlie Hebdo, which left 12 people dead. But we begin with the government's plans to make Korea a creative economy. Now, economy-related ministries and agencies are about to present their action plans for the next 12 months to President Park, who's been pushing hard for a radical economic overhaul of the nation. Our Song Ji-son reports.
Innovation and entrepreneurship are the keywords for 2015. 5 government ministries and organizations in charge of science, technologies, and industries put together a blueprint on Thursday to turn Korea into a vibrant, creative economy. The Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning, the Trade Ministry, the Small and Medium Business Administration, and the nation's finance and communications regulators all vowed to follow up with action plans to promote entrepreneurship needed to turn ideas into businesses.
We'll create a dynamic economy where creativity thrives and new businesses are born and grow. The first step is to set up an organic ecosystem conducive to an innovative economy.
One of the government's top projects this year is setting up innovative creative economy centers in 17 industrial sites by June. Each center will specialize in one specific industry based on the strength and characteristics of the local area. One-stop services will be provided at these centers for startups seeking funds, partners, distribution channels, and clients. Seoul is also seeking to make better use of its free trade agreements with other countries to boost growth. The government wants to help companies, especially small and medium-sized businesses, make better use of recently agreed free trade deals, and in particular, the one with China. Seoul will launch a consolidated information platform and set up a China desk, a one-stop service for exporters seeking advice on expanding their outbound shipments. The government is aiming to lock $600 billion in exports and attract $20 billion in foreign direct investment this year, to become an FTA hub and business center for the East Asia region. The government is vying to make collaborative efforts across its ministry so that the Korean economy can take another leap forward this year. If things work out as policymakers plan, ordinary Koreans will feel their society is more innovative and that their lives are getting better by the end of this year. Song Ji-son, ARIRANG News.
The World Bank has downgraded its global growth outlook for this year and the next. In its semi-annual Global Economic Prospects report that was released on Wednesday in Washington, the lender says it expects the world economy to expand 3% in 2015, down from a projection of 3.4% that was made in June. The report says the strengthening US economy and low oil prices will fail to offset sluggish growth in Europe, China and Japan. The lender identified the major risks as persistently weak global trade and the possibility of financial market volatility when the US Federal Reserve raises rates as planned sometime this year. The World Bank also cut its forecast for 2016 to 3.3% from 3.5%. Now, despite their rather strained ties, trading volume between the two Koreas hit a record high last year, exceeding $2.1 billion. Most of the items traded were raw materials and finished goods from the Inter-Korean Industrial Complex in Kaesong. In 2013, when the complex was shut down for around 6 months amid high inter-Korean tensions, trade volume was just over $1 billion. Now, President Park Geun-hye will pass on a message to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on this Thursday through a representative of Korea's ruling party. The Saenuri Party's Supreme Council member, So Chung-won, is now in Japan. He's there on a 3-day visit with a group of Korean lawmakers affiliated with the Korea-Japan Parliamentarians Union. Lawmakers say the message is not in the form of any kind of official letter, but it is going to be delivered in person by that Korean lawmaker. Of very high interest is whether the message will include any suggestion of a summit between the two leaders, something that is yet to take place under the current administration. The Korean and Japanese lawmakers that make up the union have vowed to push for a summit by the middle of the year. North Korea has stepped up its criticism of the United States after Washington rejected its offer to cancel joint military drills with South Korea in exchange for a temporary suspension of nuclear testing. The North has also cautioned the US against meddling in inter-Korean affairs, blaming it for stirring up tensions on the Korean peninsula. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
After offering to temporarily suspend its nuclear tests for an end to joint South Korea-U.S. military drills, North Korea proposed direct talks with the United States. In a press conference on Tuesday, North Korea's deputy ambassador to the UN said it was willing to explain the offer, but claimed Washington's rejection reflected its hostility.
The United States has shown once again that they will continue to increase attack military capabilities in the South Korea, while requesting us to not to have our own national defense capabilities.
Seoul and Washington insist their annual training exercises, scheduled for March, are defensive in nature, but Pyongyang sees them as a practice for war. In its state-run Dodong-sinmun newspaper on Wednesday, North Korea advised the U.S. to step out of inter-Korean affairs. The paper claimed that Washington has always stirred up confrontation whenever there were signs of easing tensions on the Korean peninsula. It called on South Korea to work together with the North to counter the American interference. Analysts see this as part of North Korea's efforts to increase pressure on Seoul. President Park Geun-hye and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had both expressed their willingness to improve ties in the new year. But while North Korea blames Washington for disturbing the mood for dialogue, it has yet to respond to South Korea's offer for talks, which was made over 2 weeks ago. Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
Now, US President Barack Obama will lay out plans next week to protect American consumers and businesses from cyber threats. A White House official says Obama has already been introducing related legislative proposals and executive actions that will be part of his State of the Union address, which will happen next Tuesday. They tackle things such as identity theft and privacy issues, cybersecurity and broadband access. A diplomatic source says there's a very good chance Obama will mention North Korea by name after Pyongyang's alleged cyber hack on Sony Pictures. Adding to Washington's cyber woes, the Twitter and YouTube accounts for the US Central Command were also taken over by hackers this week who claim to be working on behalf of the terror group that calls itself Islamic State. And now to the latest update in the AirAsia disaster. A Singaporean Navy ship has located the main body of the passenger jet that crashed in the Java Sea last month. In a Facebook post, Singapore's defence minister revealed images of the plane's fuselage. The photos taken by an underwater vehicle, which you can see there, show the damaged wing and pieces of the AirAsia slogan painted on the exterior hull. Indonesia's National Search and Rescue Agency has confirmed the discovery and is now redirecting divers to the crash site. It's believed that most of the missing victims are inside the fuselage. 162 people were on board the airliner when it crashed on December 28th. Now, as investigators in France and beyond try to put the pieces together in the Paris terror attacks, it received perhaps one of the biggest clues yet from Yemen, as Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula has claimed responsibility for the attack on Charlie Hebdo. We're going to discuss this and more with Eunice Kim at the News Centre. So, Eunice, we are also getting word that French police could be close to this fourth suspect in last week's string of attacks.
Right, Mark. The French newspaper Le Parisien is reporting that detectives believe this fourth suspect could have been an accomplice to Amedy Coulibaly, who was, of course, a gunman at the Paris kosher supermarket strike. Detectives were seen searching for clues at a suburban house that Coulibaly had rented. We will watch this angle of the story, but also in a video posted online, a leader of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, Nasser bin Ali al-Anzi, claimed the Charlie Hebdo operation was their work, in fact, and vengeance for the magazine's satirical depictions of the Prophet Muhammad. He also indicated that Anwar al-Awlaki, a Yemeni American preacher, had masterminded this strike, presumably before he was killed in a CIA-led drone strike in Yemen in 2011. That is also the year the main suspects of the magazine's siege, Sharif and Saeed Kouachi, are said to have gone to Yemen. Now, U.S. officials confirmed the video as authentic, but are still probing its claims. Meanwhile, you see there France's flagship aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle, has been sent to Iraq to aid in the war against the Islamic State group. Aboard the nuclear-powered vessel, French President François Hollande said the current situation justified the presence of the aircraft carrier.
And Wednesday was exactly 1 week to the day that much of that magazine, Charlie Hebdo's leadership, and all the artists there were killed in cold blood during those terror attacks. And the magazine marked it by releasing that rather controversial issue with the cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad on its cover. And it's been a huge success.
Yeah, at least that is what it looks like in France. The anticipation that has been building up to yesterday's release, which is planned to be staggered, by the way, did show up at the newsstands as the so-called survivors issue sold out within hours in Paris. Even before daylight hit on Wednesday, people were already huddled at newsstands to be among the first to get their hands on that issue. The magazine said it will boost its initial print run of 3 million copies to 5 million to keep up with the demand. Now, even though the weekly is producing the issue in multiple languages, including Arabic, you won't find it everywhere. In fact, a court in Turkey did order a block on websites that feature the latest cover of the satirical magazine. Obviously, a lot of unhappy people over there over the decision to feature Prophet Muhammad on the cover.
Yes, and meanwhile we're seeing a crackdown on hate speech in France as police have arrested dozens of people for anti-Semitic remarks and glorifying terrorism.
Yeah, and this is sparking a debate on how far free speech should be protected. France does have hate speech laws that allow offenders to be charged for speech that insults based on religion, race, ethnicity, or national origin. And among the 54 people arrested so far was a comedian, Didion Mbala, who had been facing accusations of anti-Semitism remarks before. It should be noted, though, that none of those arrested have been directly linked to last week's terror attacks. Security remains tight on the streets of Paris. Some 10,000 troops and 120,000 security forces have been deployed since President Hollande raised its terror alert level to the highest last week.
Well, it's rather shocking, isn't it, to see armed soldiers on the streets of Paris trying to protect people, but
people feel safe.
Yeah, hopefully they can feel safe. And we'll see you again at Eunice with more reports at noon.
See you then.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers 15 billion. Well, we have some news just coming in. Korea's central bank is keeping its key interest rate unchanged at 2% for this month of January. This follows 2 rate cuts, each by 1/4 percentage point, back in August and October of last year, and we'll bring you more details on that story in our next newscast at noon Korea time. Now, there's an increasing economic disconnect these days in Korea. On the one hand, data shows the Korean economy is doing okay and is outperforming most of its rivals. But on the flip side, many working and middle-class Koreans complain that the quality of their life keeps on getting worse. For a look at why this might be happening, Gwon-swa reports.
The days of growth at a breakneck pace are long gone, and yet the Korean economy has shown steady growth in recent years, even after the 2008 global financial crisis. Even so, there are surveys showing that 8 out of 10 Koreans don't think their life is much better than before.
Life is really hard. It's hard for the unwealthy people. Something must be done about the economy.
Statistics Korea says the size of the country's middle class is contracting. Back in 1990, some 75% of the nation's population was categorized as middle class. Now, the percentage has dropped to below 70. The number of people in the lowest income bracket, on the other hand, has jumped from 7 to nearly 12% in the same period. In the past 24 years, Korean households saw their average monthly income grow 3.7 times at current prices. But that's been dwarfed by a 6-fold jump in GDP. And an average household has to cope with a 5-fold hike in costs for fixed expenditures like taxes and insurance during the same period. Some economists say this is due to the nation's companies garnering greater benefits from growth than households. There are other factors too.
When the economy grew by 1% in the past, the employment rate grew by around 0.6%. Today, the rate stands at around 0.3%.
Experts say there needs to be a bigger focus on creating more quality jobs in order to increase consumer spending, which would ultimately lead to higher income for the nation's ordinary people. Gwon-swa, ARIRANG News.
Now, President Park Geun-hye wants Korea to stay front and center of the hyper-connected digital revolution and vowing to throw government support behind such efforts. She said the investment would help build momentum for economic growth in Korea for the next 3 decades. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
President Park Geun-hye on Wednesday said that Korea will stay at the forefront of the global push to try and connect all objects to the internet, pointing to innovative technologies as top priority.
변화와 발전을 이루어가는 데 있어서 과학기술과 정보방송통신 분야가 혁신과 융합의 플랫폼이 되어야 한다고 생각합니다.
She also vowed to enhance the country's competitiveness by linking key industries, including automobile, electronics, and construction to the ICT sector. It's a move that the president believes will push economic growth.
초연결 디지털 혁명에서도 한 발 앞서 나가서 향후 30년의 경제성장 동력을 마련할 수 있도록 정부는 최선을 다해 지원할 것입니다.
Korea is one of the most wired countries in the world. As part of efforts to stay ahead of the IT revolution and promote policies aimed at revitalizing the domestic economy, President Park reinforced her commitment to ease regulations that hinder scientific research, development, and investment. Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with the Korean national football team, where despite advancing to the quarterfinals of the 2015 Asian Cup, there's still a lot of uncertainties with the team, especially with the lack of offense. Now, compared the Korean national team and the Australian national team, who both have 2 wins in Group A so far, they're completely different teams despite the record. While Korea advanced to the quarterfinals with a pair of 1-0 victories against Oman and Kuwait, Australia is one of the hottest teams in the tournament, scoring 8 goals against similar opponents. And with the two nations set to face off on Saturday, the good news is Son Heung-min will be back in the lineup after ailing from a flu, as he hopes to spark the offense the team desperately needs. Now, win or lose on Saturday, the Korean national football team will advance to the quarterfinals. But for the North Korean national football team, well, the tournament came to an early end after their second loss on Wednesday. Now, a must-win situation for the North Korean national football team on Wednesday after their 1-0 loss to Uzbekistan last Saturday in their first group stage match. But North Korea checked out, unable to stop the barrage of goals from Saudi Arabia as they lose 4-1 and were eliminated from the 2015 Asian Cup. Now, the last time the North has won the Asian Cup was back 35 years ago. Now, if Kang Jong-ho knew how to speak like a pirate, he would have said "weigh anchor" on Wednesday as he left for Pittsburgh. Now, weigh anchor meaning let's go. Now, with the 28-year-old slugger leaving for Pittsburgh via Incheon International Airport, a press conference was held before his departure as he stated that nothing has been finalized despite the reports of him signing a 4-year deal worth $16 million. But he did sound excited as he talked about facing off against his good friend Ryu Hyun-jin, even adding that Ryu's English is still worse than his. Well, speaking of which, while Ryu Hyun-jin of the LA Dodgers has enjoyed 2 years of success so far, Yoon Sung-min of the Baltimore Orioles, not so much, and it's not going to get better. Now, the former Kia Tigers ace, who spent his entire 2014 season in the minor leagues, will not be invited to spring camp. This, according to his manager, Buck Showalter. Instead, he'll be sent to train at a minor league spring camp, leaving his future in doubt. Of course, with his contract having only a minor league option only in his first year, if he does get called up to the majors, he cannot be sent back down to the minors. And unfortunately, the latest move shows the team isn't keen on having him on their 25-man roster. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Well, early spring-like weather continues today. The weather should feel more like early March, with high picking up to 7 here in Seoul this afternoon. And dry weather advisory in the eastern coastal regions have been finally lifted thanks to a light rain. Though 5 millimeters of more rain should fall till this afternoon, while 1 to 3 centimeters of snow is expected for the mountainous regions in Gangwon-do. In the meantime, other regions can expect to have mostly to partly sunny skies throughout the day. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. Now, the afternoon high, Seoul will climb up to 7, while Daegu and Gwangju should peak at 9, and Busan will reach 11 this afternoon. And as for the other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon should both see a high of 9 and 8 respectively, while Dokdo will peak at 5. Now, enjoy this spring-like weather while you can, because after tomorrow morning's mix of rain and snow, the temperatures will plummet to icy cold side again on Saturday, but will will rise to the warm side again on Sunday. But that's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now. Plenty more stories online, and it's also worth checking out our smartphone app. There's plenty more news and programs on there as well. And we'll be back at noon Korea time with our next newscast. Until then, goodbye.